Hi, my name is Madison, and I was given an assignment to talk about addiction. And I've never really made any videos of myself talking before, but I've had a lot of people tell me that I should, speak about this subject and my experiences, and that it might be helpful to people. And I've always just kind of thought that, what, nobody cares what I have to say about it. Everything that could possibly be said has already been said in 1,000 different ways, and doesn't seem to have really made much of a difference. Like the same stigma and stereotypes and judgments and assumptions are all still out there, and I think it's really unfortunate the way that people have really generalized addiction and what it does to people and the outcomes, because I really believe that it's subjective, and I think that you, like so many other things, you have to, it has to be treated and dealt with on a case-by-case basis, because it doesn't affect everyone the same, and not everyone has the same outcomes and the same experiences. I mean, I've been a meth addict for 11 years now, and most people are always shocked when I tell them that, because they never in a million years would look at me and think that I've ever done any drugs, or especially not something like that. And I've kind of made it a point to take the absolute best care of myself, more than anything, to show that it can be done, because I think it's important that we don't make people in active addiction feel like they're a lost cause, like that they're doomed for the same results and the same outcomes as everyone else. What we're told, it happens to everybody else. I think it really limits people's control over their situation, because I know that it's important to make sure people know the dangers of it, and I definitely do not believe that it should be encouraged, or it's definitely not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing. And if I could go back, I would have done things differently. But something being a tragedy, isn't always, a certainty. Some of the best people I've ever known in my life were meth addicts, and they were, and like some people that I knew were like 100 times better people on meth than off of it. Like, they just had their shit together, and they were responsible, and they went to work, and they paid their stuff, and they were so much nicer and kinder and more generous and caring. And then for whatever reason, they would be without it and would be sober, and they just were awful to be around. They weren't nice. They didn't care about anything. They didn't want to go to work. Nothing mattered, and everything sucked, and it was just like this, and these are people that have been doing it for 30, 40, 50 years, and their lives were always, everything ran like a well-oiled machine up until they didn't have it. And I've known a lot of people like that, myself included. Not to say that there are not many, many more cases of people that are just absolutely out of control, and I think it has a lot to do with probably personality types and just how people are wired differently. Like, some people spend their whole lives feeling like they're missing something, like they're missing drive or a sense of control over themselves, that like the second that meth enters their system, it's like you finally found this key component or something. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I think it's important not to discount those people or to steal the credibility of their story just because it doesn't fit into the stereotype. Or and I understand that those aren't the stories that really need to be like, you know, celebrated like the same way that recovery stories are celebrated, because, you know, you'll have kids and whoever else thinking, well, maybe that'll be me, maybe I can do it, and I'll be one of those kind of, you know, people. And that's definitely not the majority, you know. It's definitely not. I mean, you have to be a specific kind of person, I think, with like with certain standards for yourself and your life that are unwavering, you know. It's kind of like mind over matter. Like, I got to a point, like the first 5 years of addiction for me were really, really stereotypical. And I think that that's probably inevitable for everybody. But because of the kind of person I was, it really, really was tearing me apart inside, because I really felt like it was like a failure of intellect. Like, I just couldn't believe that I had let something like this happen to me. Like, I had always just been so put together and, you know, grounded and self-aware. And I won't get into my whole, you know, story of how I even ended up doing meth, but I was definitely not somebody that anyone would have ever foreseen doing that. And after 5 years, I had tried to go to NA. I just was like trying to like snap myself out of it. Like, I just needed to, you know, I'm really quick fix kind of person. Like, I don't like things that make me feel like I'm weak or defective or disabled, or like, you know. And I just kind of remember sitting thinking that there has to be an option C, you know, like everybody, like I can't just be doomed to be like this, you know, like. And I was very, very much attached to meth, you know. It just made me feel better in every way, you know. I was not willing to give that up at all, but I was not willing to live like that anymore. And I made a decision that I was not going to listen to what society or anybody else told me that I needed to do, because I think that so many things in life are considered impossible just because they've never been done before. And I don't think that anybody else was trying to do what I was going to try to do, because they had been told so many times by everybody that it wasn't possible. Like, you know, like, it's not possible to be a functioning person and have a functioning life on, you know, hard drugs like that. And I decided that I was going to find out for myself if it was possible. And I made a decision that it was not going to be a significant part of my life, you know, because I think a lot of people just look at this, you know, this bag of stuff, and they give it way more power than it deserves. And there's no reason to let anything in your life, like the outcomes of your life, should not be determined by something that small. And I spent a long time doing a lot of research and becoming as knowledgeable as I possibly could about everything about this drug, how it was made, everything that it did inside the human body, how it affected you. Because nothing, when somebody says something's bad for you, it's not just like bad for you like completely in every way. There's specific things that it's affecting in your body. There's specific, processes and things that are happening when it enters your body. And I found out what those were, what it was depleting you of, like why it affects your teeth, your hair, your skin. And I researched all these things, and then I started taking supplements and like specifically like just things that were just to see what happened. At first I wasn't at all certain that it was gonna work, but I wanted to see what happened, because at that time, 5 years in, I was looking pretty rough. Like, I mean, I hadn't like started aging yet because I was still really, really young. Like I was 19, 20 years old, but I definitely looked like I was on drugs, and I was very, very underweight. I was like 79 pounds, and I had kidney and liver failure twice. I was just not in good shape at all. I wasn't taking care of myself, and so I completely just dove headfirst into becoming, a meth expert, because I thought, like, you can't defeat an enemy that you're not familiar with. You like to defeat any enemy, you have to know your enemy. You can't go into battle having no idea what you're up against. And I also think that if people really, really did stuff like this, things become a lot less, scary and seemingly insurmountable when you have no idea what it is, what it really is, and what it's really doing. Because I think that harm reduction is such an important concept that's not talked about enough. And I think that because the statistics show that as much as we all just want to believe, if we lived in a fairy tale world where everybody on drugs would get completely clean and sober and never go back, that's not the world we live in. And most people don't do that. Most people don't get sober and stay sober, like not even half. And I think we really need to be coming up with more solutions, like be willing to compromise things like this. Like you can't, like, I think it's far more important to teach people how to take care of themselves and how to not die and how to not destroy their bodies and how to be functional and you can be a good person too. Because like I learned, my life got significantly better when I stopped stealing. After 5 years of addiction, I had stolen so much from so many people, and my life was shit. And when I stopped stealing, I remember it was almost just like, it was the closest thing to magic I've ever experienced. Bad things stopped happening to me when I stopped being putting bad out into the world, like that's the most important thing. It's like, you're going to be an addict. You have to make sure that it is not going to be a burden on anybody else. Like, that means like you have to like it's not anyone else's problem. That's the first thing. That's the only way you're going to keep bad things from happening to you and keep, because the thing is like, if you're a bad person, anytime you try to accomplish anything, it's going to fall apart. Like, people aren't going to want to help you. Nobody's going to believe in you. You're not going to get opportunities. You're going to just have the worst luck, and everything's not like nothing. You can't put evil out and expect to have good fortune, And so these are all just, there's a whole lot that goes into it. But I looked like the before and after pictures of me are crazy. It looks like a before and after picture of somebody that was on meth and then got clean, but really it's just my first 5 years on meth and my second 5 years on meth. The before and after, it looks like a completely different person. And the second one doesn't look like someone on drugs at all. And I did it without spending a single day sober, I have none of the typical, like, side effects or, you know, the things you read about that people on meth go through. I don't have any of those things in my life anymore. I mean, it was a lot of hard work. Like, I'm very disciplined, and I have a very strict, you know, just even physical and like health, like maintenance and upkeep, and the stuff that I do to take good care of myself is probably a lot more than just a normal person would have to do. But I was willing to do it, and you know, I'm sure there's other people out there that would be willing to do it if they even knew that it would work and it was an option, you know? So I've never really wanted to talk about any of this stuff like in a public space, because I've always kind of felt like people would just freak out on me, you know, and think that I'm trying to excuse meth or make it seem like it's not as bad as people think it is. It is bad. It is as bad as everybody thinks it is, but it's not as one size fits all and insurmountable as everybody believes it is. You know, you have to be willing, like if somebody says, listen, like I have this problem, like sometimes people are born without arms, you know, and you don't tell them, well, your life's gonna suck. Like, I don't really know what to tell you. Like, you should just totally just give up and lay down because you don't have arms. I don't know how you're ever gonna be happy or have a good life. No, we tell them, you know, it's okay. We believe in them. We cheer for them, and they make the best out of what the life they've been given, you know. And there's people that do crazy, amazing things that don't have arms or legs or whatever else it is, you know. They had to work a lot harder, and they had a lot more challenges that most people don't have. But they, you know, it wasn't hopeless. It wasn't hopeless, and the same thing can be said for addiction. I don't believe that everybody has the same things inside them. You know, everybody's wired differently. So I don't think it's fair to make everybody that's on drugs feel like a failure because there's these people that got clean and that they did it, and that you're a failure because you didn't do it. You know, I don't, like, those people had probably different reasons. They, like, you know, sometimes people have kids that they need to get clean for, and 100%, like, that's a strong motivator. And when you have kids that you need to get custody of, there's no way around it. You've got to get sober, you know. Like, you can't be a functional drug addict and raise kids. I don't recommend that. But not everybody has those same, you know, motivators, and not everybody, I think that meth it grabs everyone differently, and it fills different voids for people, and I think that people should be able to, like, you know, speak about their accomplishments and anything. Like, they should be able to say, like, hey, I'm an addict, but my life isn't terrible. Like, my life isn't a tragedy. Like, no, it's not ideal, and no, I hope I'm not doing this forever, but I don't want anybody to, like, feel sorry for me or look down on me or think that I'm a failure, because I don't feel like one. You know, I don't feel like the way everybody says that I should feel about myself, you know, because of this, you know, disease, handicap, or whatever that I have, you know. Like, you can still live with handicaps and you can still do other things, you know. Like, I manage it, you know, the same way like anybody would with, like, diabetes or whatever. Like, I don't put that much thought into it. It's, to me, I always compare it to like putting gas in your car, you know. It's, you know, nobody likes doing it. It sucks. It costs money, but like, if you got to do it if you want to go anywhere. But I don't put any more thought into doing it than I do putting gas in my car. That's the significance it has in my life, you know. Nobody spends all day obsessing over how they got to put gas in their car, you know. It's just a necessary part of my life right now. Like, it's just something that I've managed to kind of tailor my life to work, you know, the best that it possibly can. And I really, the best thing that could happen, I think, for society is if we could get to a place where we were willing to hear these kinds of stories and experiences that people have without rolling our eyes or telling people they're in denial or that they're trying to make excuses for it or discounting, what they have to say because it's not what you think is true, and most people with the strongest opinions have no idea what they're talking about, I don't know. I hope somebody hears this and maybe doesn't feel so alone in their own experience, because I know I've always felt that way. For years I've been waiting to hear somebody's testimony on YouTube or something with a similar outlook or experience, and I've yet to find one. And so I'm kind of taking the initiative and hoping that maybe there's other people out there that feel the same way I do, or that might benefit from knowing that there's so much more possible than you believe there is. You just have to want it enough.